Welcome back in part 2 of VT. Let's continue this topic.
In 1954, the IOC became the British Petroleum Company.
After the 1953 Iranian coup d'etat, Iranian Oil Participants Limited (IOP), a holding company, was founded in October 1954 in London to bring Iranian oil back to the international market.
British Petroleum was a founding member of this company with 40% stake.
IOP operated and managed oil facilities in Iran on behalf of NIOC.
Similar to the Saudi Aramco 50-50 agreement of 1950, the consortium agreed to share profits on a 50-50 basis with Iran, but not to open its books to Iranian auditors or to allow Iranians onto its board of directors. In 1953, British Petroleum entered the Canadian market through the purchase of a minority stake in Calgary-based Trion Oil Company and expanded further to Alaska in 1959, resulting discovery of oil at Prudhoe Bay in 1969.
In 1956, its subsidiary Dersi Exploration Company, Africa Limited has been granted 4 oil concessions in Libya.
In 1962, Scottish Oils ceased oil shale operations.
In 1965, it was the first company to strike oil in the North Sea.
In 1969, BP entered the United States by acquiring the East Coast refining and marketing assets of Sinclair Oil Corporation.
The Canadian holding company of British Petroleum was renamed BP Canada in 1969, and in 1971 it acquired 97.8% stake of Supertest Petroleum.
By the 1960s, British Petroleum had developed a reputation for taking on the riskiest ventures.
It earned the company massive profits. It also earned them the worst safety record in the industry.
In 1967, the giant oil tanker Tory Canyon foundered off the English coast.
Over 32 million U.S. gallons, 760,000 barrels, 120,000 cubic meters of crude oil was spilled into the Atlantic and onto the beaches of Cornwall and Brittany, causing Britain's worst ever oil spill.
The ship was owned by the Bahamas-based Barracuda Tanker Corporation and was flying the flag of Liberia, a well-known flag of convenience, that was being chartered by British Petroleum.
The ship was bombed by RAF jet bombers in an effort to break up the ship and burn off the leaking oil, but this failed to destroy the oil slick.
In 1967, BP acquired chemical and plastics assets of the Distillers Company, which were merged with British Hydrocarbon Chemicals to form BP Chemicals. The company's oil assets were nationalized in Libya in 1971, in Kuwait in 1975, and in Nigeria in 1979.
In Iraq, IPC ceased its operations after it was nationalized by the Bathist Iraqi government in June 1972, although legally Iraq Petroleum Company still remains in existence but as a dormant company, and one of its associated companies, Abu Dhabi Petroleum Company, ADPC, formerly Petroleum Development, Trucial Coast Limited, also continues, with the original shareholding intact.
The intensified power struggle between oil companies and most governments in Middle East, along with the oil price shocks that followed the 1973 oil crisis, meant British Petroleum lost most of its direct access to crude oil supplies, produced in countries that belong to the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, and prompted it to diversify its operations beyond the heavily Middle East-dependent oil production.
In 1976, BP and Shell merged their marketing operations in the United Kingdom by dividing Shell Nex and BP.
In 1978, the company acquired a controlling interest in Standard Oil of Ohio, Ohio. In Iran, British Petroleum continued to operate until the Islamic Revolution in 1979.
The new regime of Ayatollah Khomeini nationalized all of the company's assets in Iran without compensation. As a result, BP lost 40% of its global crude oil supplies.
In 1970 to 1980s, BP diversified into coal, minerals and nutrition businesses which all were divested later. The British government sold 80 million shares of BP at $7.58 in 1979 as part of Thatcher-era privatization.
This sale represented slightly more than 5% of BP's total shares and reduced the government's ownership of the company to 46%.
On 19 October 1987, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher authorized the sale of an additional £7.5 billion, $12.2 billion of BP shares at 333 pence, representing the government's remaining 31% stake in the company. In November 1987, the Kuwait Investment Office purchased a 10.06% interest in BP, becoming the largest institutional shareholder.
The following May, the Keo purchased additional shares, bringing their ownership to 21.6%.
This raised concerns within BP that operations in the United States, BP's primary country of operations, would suffer.
In October 1988, the British Department of Trade and Industry required the Keo to reduce its shares to 9.6% within 12 months.
Peter Walters was the company chairman from 1981 to 1990.
During his period as chairman, he reduced the company's refining capacity in Europe.
In 1982, the downstream assets of BP Canada were sold to Petro-Canada.
In 1984, Standard Oil of California was renamed the Chevron Corporation. It bought Gulf Oil, the largest merger in history at that time.
To meet antitrust regulations, Chevron divested many of Gulf's operating subsidiaries and sold some Gulf stations and a refinery in the eastern United States to British Petroleum and Cumberland Farms in 1985.
In 1987, British Petroleum negotiated the acquisition of Britoil and the remaining publicly traded shares of Standard Oil of Ohio.
At the same year, it was listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, where its shares were traded until delisting in 2008. Walters was replaced as chair by Robert Horton in 1990.
Horton wrote on his appointment that he and his senior colleagues would adopt values representing the interests of all stakeholders, including the company's employees, customers, shareholders, suppliers, and the community.
Horton carried out a major corporate downsizing exercise, removing various tiers of management at the head office.
In 1992, British Petroleum sold off its 57% stake in BP Canada upstream operations, which was renamed as Talisman Energy.
John Brown, who had joined BP in 1966 and rose through the ranks to join the board as managing director in 1991, was appointed group chief executive in 1995. In 1981, British Petroleum entered into the solar technology sector by acquiring 50% of Lucas Energy Systems, a company which became Lucas BP Solar Systems and later BP Solar.
The company was a manufacturer and installer of photovoltaic solar cells.
It became wholly owned by British Petroleum in the mid-1980s. British Petroleum entered the Russian market in 1990 and opened its first service station in Moscow in 1996.
In 1997, it acquired a 10% stake for $571 million in the Russian oil company Sedenko, which later became a part of the NKVP.
Sedenko was run by Russian oligarch Vladimir Putin, who obtained Sedenko through the controversial loans for shares privatization scheme.
In 2003, VP invested $8 billion into a joint venture with Russian oligarch Mikhail Fridman's TNK.
In 1992, the company entered the Azerbaijani market.
In 1994, it signed the production sharing agreement for the Azeri-Chirag oil, rejected in 1995 for the Shah-Deniz gas field development.
Under John Brown, British Petroleum acquired other oil companies, transforming BP into the third largest oil company in the world.
British Petroleum merged with Amoco, formerly Standard Oil of Indiana, in December 1998, becoming BP Amoco plc.
Most Amoco stations in the United States were converted to BP's brand and corporate identity.
In 2000, BP Amoco acquired Atlantic Richfield Company, Arco, and Burmah-Castle.
Together with the acquisition of Arco in 2000, BP became owner of a 33.5% stake in the Olympic pipeline.
Later that year, BP became an operator of the pipeline and increased its stake up to 62.5%.
As part of the merger's brand awareness, the company helped the Tate Modern Gallery of British Art launch representing Britain 1500 to 2000.
In 2001, in response to negative press on British Petroleum's poor safety standards, the company adopted a green sunburst logo and rebranded itself as BP, Beyond Petroleum, plc.
In the beginning of the 2000s, BP became the leading partner and later operator of the Vatute-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, project which opened a new oil transportation route from the Caspian region.
In 2002, BP acquired the majority of Veba AG, a subsidiary of Veba AG, and subsequently rebranded its existing stations in Germany to the Ural name.
As part of the deal, BP acquired also the Veba Al stake in Rural joint venture.
Rural was dissolved in 2016.
On 1 September 2003, BP and a group of Russian billionaires, known as AAR, Alpha Access Renova, announced the creation of a strategic partnership to jointly hold their oil assets in Russia and Ukraine.
As a result, TNKVP was created.
In 2004, BP's olefins and derivatives business was moved into a separate entity which was sold to Ineos in 2005.
In 2007, VP sold its corporate-owned convenience stores, typically known as VP Connect, to local franchisees and shoppers.
On 23 March 2005, 15 workers were killed and more than 170 injured in the Texas City refinery explosion.
To save money, major upgrades to the 1934 refinery have been postponed.
Brown pledged to prevent another catastrophe.
3 months later, Thunder Horse PDQ, VP's giant new production platform in the Gulf of Mexico, nearly sank during a hurricane.
In their rush to finish the $1 billion platform, workers had installed a valve backwards, allowing the ballast tanks to flood.
Inspections revealed other shoddy work.
Repairs costing hundreds of millions would keep Thunder Horse out of commission for 3 years. Lord Brown resigned from BP on 1 May 2007.
The head of exploration and production, Tony Hayward, became the new chief executive.
In 2009, Hayward shifted emphasis from Lord Brown's focus on alternative energy, announcing that safety would henceforth be the company's #1 priority. In 2007, BP formed with AB Sugar and DuPont a joint venture, Vivergo Fuels, which opened a bioethanol plant in Salton near Hull, United Kingdom, in December 2012.
Together with DuPont, BP formed a biobutanol joint venture, Butamax, by acquiring biobutanol technology company Biobutanol LLC in 2009.
In 2009, BP obtained a production contract to develop the supergiant Romeo field with joint venture partner CNPC. We will continue about BP in part 3, so stay tuned for more.